This is without a doubt 100%, no exaggeration, no bullshit, no me shilling. This is the greatest kids horror book that I've ever read. The greatest, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, Halloween story I've seen and experienced, in this case, read. And I don't think that's going to get surpassed. The level of this book is like watching NBA players do their thing and then LeBron and Jordan walk on stage during their prime, during their best plays. You can't then go and take other players and start comparing it to these two. These two are a phenomenon happening in front of people, audiences, fans. That's what this book is to me. This book right here is a part of the Weird House kids horror books that it came out last year, the Shivers series. I reviewed the first book, not the first book in release order, but the first book I read was Wanna Play a Game. I made the video, the great kids horror book you've never heard of. One of the most action-packed things I read. And I loved it. I gave it a 9.2 out of 10. I thought it was great. But then this book I read today. If I read this in October, I would have been over the stars. This is The Sleepy Hollow Gang from Robert P. Ottone. First of all, even though there's a glare, beautiful cover. These books are high quality from Weird House Press. They are beautiful. It's full art covers. They're big books, as you can see in my hands. Big books. And, yo, man. This book, I gave a 10 out of 10. Perfect. But realistically, this is a 12 out of 10 kids horror book. Have you ever read a kids horror book which felt like you were watching a high-budget movie with great special effects, good producer, good director, good screenplay writer? That's what this book is like. This book took 5 main characters and gave them equal spotlight, equal amazing moments, genuine bonding between the friends of the Sleepy Hollow gang that the story is about. They deal with emotional moments, emotional trauma. They genuinely bond with each other in this dire stress of what's happening in the book. There's intense, high action, high threat level, more than you could imagine scenes happening to these kids. And yet they still manage to be some of the most badass protagonists. Easily some of the best kids horror protagonists I've ever read. And Mr. Villain right there, the Headless Horseman, he is the best kids horror villain out there. He is way more violent and catches actual bodies, actual kills. Non-stop keeps coming at them like a slasher from hell. And the autumn, fall, beautiful atmosphere that you get in this book on Halloween in Sleepy Hollow. And the fact that it has some decom elements, some really funny moments that made me genuinely burst out laughing with all these unique group of characters coming together. And a sweet ending. There is no doubt. This is a 10 out of 10 that's disguised as a 12 out of 10. Okay? This is the greatest kids horror story I've ever read. Greatest Halloween story I've ever read. I have a lot of Goosebumps books that I love and enjoy. I have other kids horror books I love and enjoy. Episodes I've enjoyed. They don't compare. Some of them could get a 98%, 95%, 100% in class, but this thing is a 120%. This kid got a full 4.0 GPA and did all the extra credit that nobody else did. And the fact that this author, Robert P. Ottone, did this for Weird House Press, which is an underground publisher, meaning this book was never going to get as much popularity as Goosebumps and what Scholastic does, even Blackstone Publishing, because Stein promotes his stuff. And yet the author still decided that I'm going to go balls to the wall. I'm going to go full effort with this. I am not going to cheap out or shortcut anything. And he did all the stuff I mentioned in 140 pages. The general idea of this story is about the kid on the front cover. You have Derek Houseman. He's from Georgia. He's moving over to New York, living in, I think, Tarrytown or whatever it's called, which is realistically Sleepy Hollow. And as he moves in, he gets to school. The middle kids kind of give him taunts and make fun of him because he's got a Georgia accent. He's actually dyslexic, so he has a hard time writing. So English always troubles him, writing essays, public speaking or whatnot, reading something aloud. And he's very kind of awkward. He talks too soon sometimes and makes himself look kind of goofy. And he thinks that he's going to have a bad experience here in his new middle school. He's just going to be an outcast. And he wanted a brand new start, a brand new change coming to Sleepy Hollow because he expected that the things that kids thought about him in Georgia was going to change. He was going to get a new reformation in Sleepy Hollow. And it ends up being some of the same old stuff. But he ends up meeting the other characters. Other kids who are also kind of weird and outcast, but he ends up becoming friends with. So the first person he meets is Herman over here in the robe. So this kid is a classic monsters horror movie fan. He loves Lovecraft stuff. He loves classic monsters like, Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, all that stuff. He loves slasher movies. He mentions Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, all that type of stuff. So he's just a big horror fanatic. But again, he's also considered to be corny and kind of geeky. He actually has a rip off of TikTok account here in the book. It's called Flick Flock. That's like some shit from those Nickelodeon sitcoms like iCarly and Victorious, where instead of holding an Apple device, they're holding a Pear device. Those sort of riffs. I always like those. Yeah, they're cheesy, but they're funny. And he ends up striking up conversation with them, becomes friends with them. They start bonding. And after some time, when he starts meeting Lucy, who's the girl over here, I think. No, this is not Lucy. Somebody else. I think this is the nerdy girl. But he meets Lucy, who's a girl that he falls in love with. She's got beautiful violet eyes. She seems very kind and understanding. So Herman ends up inviting Derek to go on Halloween night with them, a little bit of trick-or-treating and some fun, some food, but mainly they want to perform a ritual because he has a channel, Herman on Flick Flock, where he goes over like folklore and urban legends of the town. He does, explorations and all this stuff. So Lucy's friends with them, but other people kind of think he's nerdy, but now Derek thinks it's cool too. And he invites him to do a ritual on Halloween night. And the ritual is kind of your viral, kind of Bloody Mary kind of thing. But this one is said to be quite occult and might actually spark something, which is that on Halloween night, you go to a cemetery and you have to put an 1800s mirror in front of a gravestone and have it reflected off there. And by getting 3 candles and lighting them and giving an offering to the person in the grave, it said that the candles are supposed to blow out on their own and then reignite with purple fire. And the thing will come out. The person that you're reanimating, bringing back to life in this game called Wake the Dead, will come back according to this ritual, which is a cool idea. It's pretty awesome. And as the story continues, Derek is very excited. He speaks with his parents. His mom and dad have really good banter between each other, a genuine relationship, and very caring to Derek, especially with this tough move. And one night, when he's on the couch and he's getting soda and he's just watching the TV, seeing what's coming on, he ends up falling asleep before he knows it. And funny enough, as he fell asleep, the thing that was playing was a cartoon version of the Headless Horseman. So in this nightmare sequence, he ends up being in the dark woods. And surrounded with him are all the autumn leaves and all that fall stuff of the town of Sleepy Hollow. And in the darkness, he hears these freight train-like thundering of hooves coming down. And when he turns around, he sees that the forest is lit up. So when he fully turns, because he can't move his body, he's paralyzed, so he has to crane his neck backwards, he sees that the entire forest is erupted in a wildfire, burning to the ground, potentially going to burn him alive. And he sees that the Headless Horseman is taking his jack-o'-lantern and firing out like pyrokinesis, flamethrower kind of blasts into the forest and lighting it up. And he sees that he's also riding on this zombified, decayed, large horse. The horse has its rib cage showing. It's got meat hanging in flaps. Half of its face is like Two-Face from DC. One half is a horse. The other half is the skeleton skull underneath. And he's horrified by this. And the nightmare sequence ends when the horseman goes on his side in front of him where he can actually view him, and he throws a flaming jack-o'-lantern head at him, explodes in fire, and the character thinks he died. But he wakes up from the nightmare. He sees that his mom greets him, asks him if he's okay, and then he gets unnerved by this. He starts exploring the urban legend of Sleepy Hollow in this town to kind of learn about all the folklore stuff, talks to Herman about it. And when that happens, Herman decides who he's going to put the ritual mirror and process in front of, which is going to be the original Headless Horseman, which I'll get into how he actually is in a bit. But then Annabelle, a geeky girl, decides that these guys are cool. She wants to come along. She's that typical sort of DCOM nerd, overly geeky, but has cool moments later on. And then Zoe, who's kind of the hall monitor of the school. She's this punk rock, kind of biggest girl in the school who beats up bullies who pick on kids. She's sort of like the Batwoman of this middle school. She's a tough girl. She's from the trailer parks and stuff. More poor, but she's tough as nails. And then they get their squad together. You have Derek, you have Lucy, you have Herman, you have Annabelle and Zoe, and they end up becoming what's known as a Sleepy Hollow gang because the people in the Sleepy Hollow urban legend were called the Sleepy Hollow Boys. And since you got girls in the group and they're modern, they thought, okay, well, since we got girls in the group, we can't call it the boys, so we'll call it the gang. And then they pick some riffings on that and they go forward. And then it comes to the night. the night where he has to go during Halloween and do it. And the previous day before, him and his mom went to this Halloween costume tent. It was the day before Halloween. There was no costumes there. And he ends up getting from a strange, kind of creepy guy this costume, which is an antique, authentic, Revolutionary War soldier costume, just like what they would have worn during the legend of Sleepy Hollow. And as he puts it on, he loves it. His dad gives him some cool gifts as well. There's good bonding. But that night, before he's about to go head out for the ritual the next day, he gets this vision. And the vision is that he's alone inside the graveyard where they're going to perform this ritual. And the Headless Horseman is there on top of his horse. And then he ignites on fire. The leaves and grass and everything all around him starts smoldering and getting cremated into ashes. And then he sends out this fire wave, like fucking heat blast from Ben 10. And all the graveyard ignites on fire. It catches the church and that lights on fire. And Deke thinks he's going to die. Derek thinks he's going to die again. So now the night of Halloween comes. They get ready for the ritual. And things go bad. Things go bad because guess what? Some older character figure who's a janitor who had dealt with this ritual in the past when he did it when he was younger with kids ended up having bad things happen, and as he tries to go warn him, a mistake is made unknowingly, and the Headless Horseman is out and about. And now it's up to the Sleepy Hollow gang of kids to save the town from the evil that has arisen. Now, as I said, let me get into all the raving positives. This book has 5 main characters in the Sleepy Hollow gang, and they all get equal fucking spotlight. They all get fantastic moments, emotional moments, intense moments, dark moments, mature moments, funny ass moments. Everything is perfectly balanced in this book. And not only do these 5 characters get equal shine and all star in their own ways, but the side characters involved are also very good. And of course, one of the main characters we got to talk about, Headless Horseman here, but he'll get his time in just soon. This book is full of hilarious moments. I was surprised how many times I genuinely laughed out loud at the humor in this book. There's a scene where they meet that janitor guy and they just dealt with their Headless Horseman encounter. He tries to take him over to the apartment because he wants to get tools to kind of deal with the Headless Horseman, give the kids some time to figure out how they're going to defeat him and try to help him. And when he gets into his apartment, the kids want to come along with him. He's like, I think you guys should probably stay outside. This might look a little bit off to some people. And they're like, and they're annoyed. They're like, what do you mean? You're not a stranger. We just met you. We're cool with you. And he's like, yeah, but New York has got like some statutory laws and rules, so I don't really want to hold. You guys should just wait out here and keep watch. And they're like, I don't get it. We're cool. Like, why can't we come in, bro? Like, we should be able to see it as well. And he's like, just stay outside, bro. Just stop talking. I'm gonna go inside. So in a kid-friendly way and a more subtle way, he was basically telling them that if you guys come in here with me, I'm gonna look like a fucking pedophile. I'm not gonna look like a pedo in front of the people of Sleepy Hollow. You guys stay outside. So that message was given without saying anything, obviously, because it's inappropriate. So that was hilarious. I was laughing out loud how he's like, guys, you can't come in here. They're gonna look at me like a pedo unintentionally. And they're like, what are you talking about, bro? We're friends. What do you mean we can't come inside? He's like, these fucking kids. There's also a scene later where they're like eating some candy and taking a break, like a small breather between the first crazy thing that happens to him. And the main character, Derek, is eating some chocolates. He's like, I have to stress eat some chocolate bars. Mounds. Not my first choice, but sacrifices got to be made in dire times. And that was hilarious because Mounds is one of the most universally shit on chocolate bars. People don't like them. So he's like, hey man, tough times call for tough measures. And later he ends up getting a little bit of attention from Lucy. They end up holding hands and stuff. And he starts going, okay, now either I'm getting a heart attack like my mom talked about before, or that diner food we had is kicking its way back up to me. And then she gives him a kiss on the cheek and he's like, yeah, definitely a heart attack. And there's other funny moments. This is a funny ass book. I love it. The characters are all great. Derek is very relatable, very humble, very cool. Good guy you want to root for. And he has emotional moments where, he's thinking to himself, like, all these kids got all these talents and I'm like the doofus of the group. Why is this whole scene of what's happening on Halloween night foreshadowing my importance, the fact that I gotta be involved? That type of stuff just makes them seem like this is not worth it for me. Like, this should not be happening to me. And on top of that, you also have Zoe, who's this very tough, badass girl. She has a lot of cool moments throughout it. She also shows her emotional side, which is usually not shown. She's very much a rootable character. You have the geek girl who, despite being geeky, she's like the MVP. She solves shit. I won't explain it too much, but there's fight scenes with them and some misfits who are giving them a hard time at the diner, who come back with like more of their gang, and Zoe starts punching and kneeing and beating up people, and then Herman, is his name Herman? I forgot the names. This guy, the monster guy, he ends up, Herman, yeah, I think it is. He ends up getting docked in his face and he knocks to the ground. And then the geek girl comes up and straight kicks the dude in his nuts and he goes over and falls down. I was like, that's hilarious. And then Lucy, she actually is very cool as well. Very cool as well. Has that sweet connection to Derek. Also looks out for everybody. She's quite knowledgeable. And there is a twist involving one of these characters later that gives them a lot more backstory, a lot more emotional weight, and all types of things. So these characters were amazing. There's funny moments. There's cool stuff. But then the main head honcho, Mr. Headless Horseman. Why is he the greatest kids horror villain? Why is he so damn amazing? This guy is the highest threat level kids horror villain you'll see. He has actual bodies. Yes, he kills actual characters in the story and has killed characters from his backstory. When they first see him, the ground, the earth in the graveyard, as they perform their ritual, ends up splitting open like an earthquake. And there's an explosion and the kids get blown back and they fall over and they're like flying through the air and they're, riled up. And then as a zombie bursting from the grave, the Headless Horseman comes out with his hands and pulls himself up and gets out. And immediately the church lights on fire. And then when they're dealing with the Misfit gang that comes after him, where all that fight scene stuff happened, as the guy who got kicked in the balls is on the ground writhing, Derek tries warning him, like, get out, because they keep telling him that Zoe goes up in the faces of the bullies, and she roasted him in the diner too. So she goes up to him like, listen, if you want problems, but don't happen on this night. There's some wild shit happening. And of course the bullies are not listening, and they're about to get what's coming to them, although it is insane. And then the Headless Horseman shows up after Keith doesn't get up, and he whips out his saber and decapitates Keith, the leader of the pack. His head rolls off in front of the kids. An actual on-screen, on-page kill. And as the other misfits are trying to get away, the Headless Horseman plows through them like a car, and they all get trampled to death by the zombie horse. Yeah, that's why I said this is hardcore kids horror. This is a book that was promoted as what kids and adults can enjoy. And that's the opening scene. Then the Abe guy. Abe had done this ritual before when he was younger. And as the horseman came out, his 3 friends got killed that night and he got left with the scar. And he ended up getting blamed and shunned for what happened to the kids. Only he knew the truth, that the Headless Horseman is a demon. What his story is that there was one of the most bloodthirsty, vicious soldiers during the Revolutionary War, and this guy got his head blown off at the end by a cannonball. And because this town was founded on the Algonquin and Iroquois Native Americans, they believe in earth spirits. They believe in all type of elemental spirits. It's common for Native American culture, like the wind spirit, water spirit, earth spirit. And just so happens that the spirit of fire had possessed that soldier and brought him back from hell into the world every Halloween night, where he can hunt kids and hunt people, killing them to get back his head out of rage. And he can only hunt on Halloween, and when he's inside of Sleepy Hollow, his powers and threat level is at his strongest. He's contained to this town like a spirit. So Abe comes out, and he takes his flare gun, and he fires it into the rib cage of this horse. And the horse obviously wheels in pain, and the Headless Horseman jumps off, runs up on him, grabs him by the neck, lifts him up on the air, and starts choking him out. And while that's happening, he last minute puts a flare back into the flare gun, puts it point blank inside of the horseman's jack-o'-lantern mouth, and pulls the trigger. And the head explodes in an explosion of hellfire and pumpkin rinds. And then both of them, the horseman and Abe, are burning in the street. And as Derek wants to run up and go help Abe, Lucy pulls him back saying, there's nothing we can do for him anymore. We have to get this done before Halloween night finishes. And Derek has to reluctantly go. And when that happens, they all start crying. After all the things are happening, they're crying because it's traumatic. They're like, we're these middle school kids and we got to deal with all this stuff. There's people who are dying under our watch. It makes them feel guilty, of course. And they break down. All the kids start breaking down, crying and thinking about what the hell they're supposed to do. And then they eventually formulate a plan that we're going to do this ritual. We're going to take them down before night happens. And it doesn't matter if people die, because this has to happen tonight. Otherwise, there's going to be thousands of more people who die later as this thing keeps coming back one by one. And this Sleepy Hollow gang will be dead by then. It's already threatened to kill them all. So this is a life or death situation to save the town and save the people. unbelievable stakes. And you got the whole action scenes in this book are like straight out of a movie, and they're nonstop. When the climax starts up, there is not a break. There is nonstop action happening back and forth, movie level action. And it doesn't slow down. It leads straight into the ultimate climax ending resolution, and then the aftermath, and then the ending. And in the climax, there's so much action scenes, bro. They hide out in the school to try to find books that are about, Sleepy Hollow and folktales so they can actually find a ritual, a way to defeat this thing. And they realize they won't find it. They might have to go to town hall, break into town hall, and get the more like ancient books that are in there. And the fucking horseman appears in the school and starts running through the hallways on his horse. They compare it to like school lockdown drills when there's like a fire or tornado or school shooter. They don't say school shooter, but it's all implied with them saying it's like a lockdown drill. And the horseman is going up off of his horse to every single classroom, kicking open the doors off the hinges, and then exploding the classrooms in fire, trying to kill all the kids that he can find at any point in time and ambush them. And the school sprinklers turn off, his fire starts getting doused and stuff, and they see that every time he throws an exploding jack-o'-lantern head, his neck will explode in a pillar of hellfire, and another floating jack-o'-lantern head bomb will appear again. Like fucking, Green Goblin bombs and that type of shit. Crazy stuff. And they get into a fight with them. They got the tools that Abe gave them, and then Zoe and them start making makeshift weapons. They start using slingshots that fire push pins into them. The geeky girl ends up taking an aluminum bat and hitting him in the balls again, so Headless Horseman goes down, and then she swing, bada bada, swing, bada bada, swing, takes off half of his head and explodes it. Very fucking cool, but of course he doesn't go down. He still keeps going after him and doing crazy shit. Then there's a car chase sequence where the oldest girl of the group, Zoe, gets back to her trailer park, and they get in their dad's pickup truck, her and the main character, Derek. And obviously the Headless Horseman shows up, starts chasing them down with this saber and horse, and they have fireworks in the car. They're taking fireworks and firecrackers and throwing at it at the horse and, trying to take it down. And then he's throwing pumpkin bombs at them, and it hits the back of their car and it ignites it on fire. Then they have to use fire extinguishers and all type of stuff. And then there's a point where the Headless Horseman explodes, and his horse explodes, and he comes back because they've been strung and pieced together with pumpkin rinds. On some zombie Frankenstein shit, he connects all of his broken up body parts with this catgut made out of pumpkin rinds and his horse, and they ride after and go with him again. But this time he's burnt up, his sword is blackened, he put his left leg on his right leg, and his neck is crooked and all these things. It's so insane. It's so insane. And it leads up to the climax finale, which is one of the most emotionally intense moments involving one of the characters. And all these characters are on the verge of death, injured. Some of the kids are getting, at one point, a kid gets kicked off the bridge into the river. And then when the Headless Horseman turns around, the kid comes back and nails him with something. It's that level of nonstop stuff. And one thing about the Headless Horseman that I forgot to mention. So when Derek went on Halloween night, he went up to the house and he sees that Herman's house, he's a horror fan, he loves all things, so they decorate the house and a lot of cool stuff. And the grandma, Herman's grandma, actually runs out of the house after kids with a revving chainsaw and covered in fake blood. And Herman comes out in a Lovecraft costume. He's dressed up as an acolyte of Cthulhu. He's got the robe, he's got tentacles under his feet that are dragging. And when he explains it, he's like, "We're going to collect all the candy to sacrifice it to the great Lord Cthulhu this night." Just being over the top. But Derek actually saw a gravestone on it. And when he sees the gravestone, he sees that whole death thing that he was supposed to die on Halloween night. It's got his name on it, But during this Halloween night, Derek has been seeing ghosts that look like revolutionary soldiers that are decayed and rotten with chains on them that are all across Sleepy Hollow. And these are all the victims of the Headless Horseman. When the Headless Horseman arrives, all of its victims in spectral, revenant, ghost forms come out to watch him slaughter again. And let's just say that, something happens in the climax which makes it so epic. And when the story ends, you have a very, very mature moment where some characters, I'm not going to say who, but they have to go to therapy for a month. They have to go to therapy for a month together because the trauma of what happened this night really scarred them. And nobody believed them because it looks like these guys were responsible for all these people dying. But as the story goes on, you see how that thing kind of resolves. And the ending is very sweet. it almost leaves off like some characters' journeys are not going to stop. So yeah, this book is an 11 out of 10, a 12 out of 10. Listen, I have many Goosebumps books and things I love, but you cannot compare them to this book. If you read this book, you cannot compare them. You know exactly what I'm talking about only after you read this thing. So let me tell you guys, everybody out there, go to Barnes & Noble, go to Weird House Press, and get a paperback like I did of this book. And funniest thing, when I opened up the book, I found out it was not this page, that it's signed. The other books that I got, Mr. Sniff, was not signed. This one was signed, which is very cool. And I did not have a bookmark. I don't know where all my bookmarks went. So I actually picked up one of the Powerball lottery tickets that I got, that I had from before. And I said, okay, I'm going to use this as a bookmark. And I made a joke internally to myself that with this should guarantee that the book is going to be a jackpot. As a joke, I thought this book was going to be the weakest of the Weird House Press horror books from kids. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I don't know what that was foreshadowing. I was so wrong. Please go buy this. Please go read it. Please go read it and get it on Halloween. It'll be like a legendary night for you guys. And listen, I know I've said you can't compare this. If you love Goosebumps, if you love kids horror, go on loving them. I love a lot of them. I give them good scores. But this is like the magnum opus right now of kids horror. And I don't think it'll be surpassed. So thank you so much to Robert P. Ottone. You are the GOAT. You are fantastic. And the fact that you went through all this for a book, I'm so happy to read it. And I will promote this thing until the day I die. This deserves to be as popular as any of the most popular Goosebumps books. And I know that when people read it, they'll be like, yeah, the Horrorlander Shiv BD was absolutely, positively correct. That's all I got for today. If you guys like this video, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, comment down below. And that's all I got for today. Deuces.